This clip is from the Boundary Riders podcast, and if you do enjoy this, then make sure to check out the full episode out every single Wednesday morning on YouTube and Spotify. So next up, let's get to our ladder predictions. So I've done mine a few weeks ago. I'll quickly go through mine and then we'll go through yours, compare the pair. So my ladder predictions, this was made a couple of weeks ago. I went with Brisbane in first, Freo in second, Geelong in third, Hawthorn in fourth, Crows in fifth, Sydney in sixth. Getting into the wildcard spots, I got the Gold Coast in seventh, Collingwood in eighth, GWS in ninth, Western Bulldogs in 10th, which means the Gold Coast would play the Bulldogs and Collingwood would play the Giants. And then just outside the wildcard spots, we have St Kilda in 11th, Port Adelaide in 12th, North Melbourne in 13th, Carlton 14th, Richmond 15th, Melbourne 16th, Essendon 17th, and then West Coast at the bottom of the ladder. Now, let's go through your ladder predictions because we have a few different. So you've got Hawthorn up the top, Brisbane in second, Crows in third, Freo in fourth, Gold Coast in fifth, Sydney in sixth, Geelong in 7th, Dogs in 8th, Collingwood in 9th, St Kilda in 10th, Port Adelaide in 11th, GWS in 12th, Carlton 13th, Richmond 14th, North Melbourne 15th, Melbourne 16th, Essendon 17th, and West Coast at the bottom. So I think there's a couple different from what you did, 2 months ago?
Yeah, I think I went through I basically went through every game and actually just wrote it down of who's going to win and who's not and just try to figure it out that way. I thought that was just in a way, an easy, well, not maybe an easier way, but maybe maybe an easier way to figure it out in a way.
So you went through who's basically over-unders, who's going to get the most amount of, on wins. Yeah. So there are a couple of teams I want to look at here. So you got the Crows in the top 4, so that's pretty high.
I think it's hard to say that the Crows lose any home games this year. So you've got the 12 or 13 home games with the 2 showdowns and gather round. So you've probably got 13 home games for which they should win.
Yeah.
And you've got also the away games against some really bad teams or some really teams that, I think some games at Marvel with the way they play their game, I think will be more electric, and they as you've seen, they can pile on the points.
Yeah.
So I think those sort of teams, and they've had a pretty steady defense. So I think you wouldn't be surprised if they finish in the top 4 with the amount of home games they'll get.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair enough. You got the Gold Coast in 5th. I've got them in 7th position. So with you, do you believe that the Gold Coast are a chance to be right up the top, or do you think that they will probably sit around that 4th to 5th to 8th spot?
I think they'll be 5th to 8th. Everyone thinks they're their premiership favourites or their top 4. It's that they haven't proven anything. They've proven once that they can win a final. They still haven't proven over time that they can win the big games. They haven't won at Adelaide Oval ever. They haven't won in big game. They struggle against the Giants every season. They don't beat Brisbane every game in the derbies. They haven't proven to me that they can win consistently in the big games. Yeah.
I think also as well, going towards the end of last season in the minor rounds, they dropped right off. Yeah, and they still had to win that last game against Essendon to actually secure their spot in finals.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, they won that. I feel like a lot of people forget about that they only just scraped in the end.
Yeah.
And yes, they won that final against Fremantle, and that was great for their history, and that they finally won a final. But they scraped into it, and yes, Petrarca is a big signing. Jamara, I mean, obviously the potential is there, but hasn't shown a lot so far. So we're going to have to wait and see how good a preseason he actually has had and how good he's going to go this campaign. So that's one thing. But it's going to be a very interesting watch on the Gold Coast. I don't believe they are a premiership favourite at the moment. I think they're probably sitting just outside the 4. I'm sitting around the wildcard spots at the moment for them as well. Now, you've got Fremantle up the top, Hawthorn up the top, and Brisbane up the top. I think that's a lot of people would say. Some people are kind of off Hawthorn now with with the injuries in their thin midfield. I'm still sitting that they're going to be right up there.
Yeah, I think you got to actually look at it, is that I look at their defense, and Sicily had a poor year last year. Battle and Barras were in their first year in their new team. I think their connection is going to be even stronger this year. Sicily having less responsibility, being co-captains now, I think will help them. Impey and Carl Amon in the back half was a big difference with Josh Weddle. I think their defense can hold up a lot better than a fair amount of other teams. I think there's a lot of potential there for them. It's just that they don't have a lot of midfield depth, which is sometimes you always see that Sam Mitchell can actually figure it out. as you've seen over time.
I think as well, like people like talk about like, they're missing out on their stars, and that's totally fair. But out of the three main positions, you got defense, forward, midfield, and then you got the ruckman. But the midfield is, I think, you can chuck a lot of people through there and they can do the job. Like, you need to have a very good midfield, obviously. But if you can chuck some players that, like, if you're missing out on your best key defender and your best key forward, you're going to struggle throughout the season. If you're missing, like, your best midfielder, depending on who it is, like, Will Day obviously is tough, but they have been without him for a long time.
Yeah.
James Worpel being out, obviously moving to Geelong, probably does hamper them as well. I do get that. And John Newcombe being out in opening round with suspension likely is not great.
Well, if the one team I look at is last year with the Crows, everyone was bagging their midfield, yet they finished on top of the ladder.
Yeah.
They had one of the best defense, and their forward line could put on 150 points on the board.
Yeah.
So their midfield, everyone was saying was lackluster, and it was.
And I mean, it got called out in finals.
Yeah, it got called out in finals, but it doesn't mean that in the home and away season they finished top. Yeah. So they, on the potential of that, and Will Day coming back, will hopefully come back and play a fair amount of games in the late part of the year. I think they can still do it.
Yeah. Now, you've got in the wildcard spots, you've got the Cats, Dogs, Collingwood, and St Kilda. Now, you had the Bulldogs up in 5th spot when you last did your ladder prediction, I think. Like, it was pretty high up there. Now you've dropped them down to 8th. What's the change there? You think you predicted them a bit high, or?
I think I predicted them a bit too high in a few games. I think there was just a few games that they will struggle against. I think they rely so much on their midfield and their forward line that their defense is I just haven't seen enough of their defense to trust that they can stop teams and on the better side of it.
Yeah, and then you got Geelong in 7th, so you're expecting a bit of a drop off.
You don't get flogged by 10 goals in a grand final and perform the next year. It's always been the curse of a grand final when you
Swans
lose.
Are pretty good at that.
Yeah, when you lose a grand final by I think it's like 60 points, isn't it? Or it's 48 points or 8 goals, whatever it is. That when you get that, the next year you do struggle.
Yeah,
and
I just can't put Geelong lower. I just had them in 4th, 3rd spot. I feel weird putting them lower, but I mean, I definitely can see a world where they drop off. Now you've got Collingwood a bit lower in 9th spot. I mean, I think a lot of people have got them sitting around that wild card spot this year.
They've got no one coming through really that I can believe that, if they get 3 or 4 injuries to their key players, I don't see them being able to, in a way.
And their depth will be tested very quickly if they lose. I mean, they've already got Howe out and Darcy Moore, and they're putting a lot of, they're already talking about, Joel Cochrane's coming in. So who?
Yeah.
Who's this guy? He could be a very good player, very well, could be. But I mean, we've never heard of this guy. He's never played a game, and all of a sudden they're talking up the hype of this guy when we've barely seen barely heard a lick of a word unless you're like a huge Collingwood fan.
Yeah, and the other reason that I've done it as well is that Jamie Elliott kicked 60 goals last year at plus 30 he is. Are we really going to rely on him kicking 50 goals?
Yeah.
And, you got Tim Membrys and other forwards around him. It's like, what Danny McStay and Jack Buller and all that.
Can anyone honestly say, even without Jamie Elliott last year, they wouldn't have even got anywhere near those amount of goals, and they may have lost a few more other games. But you also look at it as well, before last year, could anyone have predicted that Jamie Elliott was going to get 60 goals?
No one would have put that on it.
So, I mean, maybe there is someone who just has a massive year for the Pies. But it's more than likely that you got to say that who is someone who's going to kick them that 50-goal margin? Who's, you kind of need that someone. I mean, Brisbane probably did buck the trend a bit, but even then they had Logan Morris kick a huge amount of goals throughout the campaign. They've got so many smalls. Collingwood really, Lockie Schultz kind of needs to come to the party if they're going to have a big year.
Well, and also the thing is what Craig McRae's been saying all pre-season is that they need more goals from the midfield. It's that, it's true, but your main source has to be that forward line. And we've seen with Melbourne in the past with their forward line, you can't rely on such a one-person player to do it all for you.
Yeah. I mean, when they won their premiership in 2021, the D's, they obviously had Tom McDonald who kicked 50-plus goals, and then they had Ben Brown, Bailey Fritsch, Cosy Pickett in his first year. And then, obviously, McDonald lost form, and then he lost his spot in the side, and then he quickly lost it. So Melbourne didn't, even when, obviously, Melbourne now, or a year ago, they didn't have a forward line. Collingwood at least had one or two, but now they're another year older. Bobby Hill's not going to probably play for the whole season. It's going to be very interesting to see where they find their goals. Like they'll beat up on the teams below them. They're too good a side. They've got too many big names. They'll be fine. But when they do get against those top teams in the competition, they're going to have to put a score on the board. And if they're playing a team like the Crows or the Gold Coast or Brisbane, are they going to be able to kick a high enough score to win the game? I don't know if they'll be able to. Now you got St Kilda floating in that last wildcard spot. You haven't joined the hype just yet of the Nasai Wanganeen Miller just absolutely creaming 4 goals in pre-season.
It was probably maybe just a bit funny that because when I was doing my ladder predictor, it's between Port and the Saints actually doing it to be in that wildcard spot. I went with the Saints probably because of the hype that they've got. Yeah, but I just
we've been sucked into the hype before.
Yeah, I think I've been sucked into it before, but I put St Kilda there because if they don't make at least a wild card spot, it's probably a failed year anyway because I think they have to win a final. But if they don't even make the wild card,
you think they have to win a final?
I think they have to. I think they have to at least be in the final. I think they have to be close to winning a final. I think they have to at least be competitive in actually a final, not a wild card spot.
We're not counting them as finals. I don't care what Andrew Dillon says.
Yeah, but I think, the hype of them actually having to do something this year, probably the first time they've ever had to in the last 15 years. I've put them in the wild card spot more than my team in Port Adelaide, but I can't really see them actually doing much else than that.
So I want to see them in the first couple of rounds of the year. Yeah. I want to see them beat Collingwood.
Yeah, that's the first test, and they have to. That will be in front of 90,000 fans,
probably predominantly Collingwood fans. If they want to show what they're really made of, they go out in opening round and they go win.
Yeah,
there's no they got close. They need to win the game.
No, they need to
show that they've matured as a team and yes, Max King's not there, but he hasn't been there for a while now. You can't rely on him to kick your goals anymore.
Yeah, I don't care if it's 1 point. They just need to win.
Yeah,
that's they can play absolutely horrible for the first 2.5 quarters. They just have to win it on the night.
Exactly. And then finally, you've got the Giants dropping out the top, and I think you probably had them in your ladder predictor in the 8 or in the top.
I think I had them in a wildcard spot before. You've got too many injuries to such key pillars, and even seeing Cadman and Brett Daniels in the last week being out for a bit. Losing Tom Green is a big loss. Finn Callahan being injured a bit pre-season, same with Jesse Hogan and Sam Taylor as well. Like they're just so much to their key pillars. It's hard to see. We've seen Sydney last year get some injuries to key players. You don't recover if you start the season poorly.
Yeah, I mean, if they don't get off to a good start, just bank a couple of wins at the start of the season. If they can do that, maybe they can make a run. But the problem is they've got a lot of their best players out.
Yeah,
and their depth is already being tested. And they had some good performers in that last scratch match against the Swans, but when they're going to be tested, with all these players out, it's going to be super tough. They're already chucking Toby Green in the midfield. That's an interesting choice. We've seen it in the past, but he's also older now, and we know his best football is up forward.
Yeah.
So the fact they have to chuck him through there, Cornelio's one of their big midfielders now they have to try and rely on. It's going to be tough to see them, rally. Now, I've got them in 9th, so this was made a couple of weeks ago. I'd probably drop them out right now and put St Kilda in. They're only inside the top 10 by 1 win. I could easily drop them out.
Yeah, and I think also, as everybody talks about, is how Collingwood never travel, and the Giants always have to travel. It's when you winning games on the road, you need momentum. You need the continuity of the players and not injuries. With the Giants having so many, it's very hard to go out and win. Go to Perth.
Yeah, go to Perth. You got to go. Then the next week they're going back to Sydney, then over to Brisbane, then back to Melbourne,
then Adelaide, and they normally do 2 or 3 weeks around. They never play in the first half of the season a lot with the Easter show and all that they talk about every year.
Yeah.
So it's very hard when you don't have a stable team.
Yeah. So. Yeah, I think the Giants could be one of the big drop-offs this year. People are talking about Collingwood, and that's more than fair, but the Giants with the injury list, it's just going to be tough. So I think they could be easily dropping, which is unfortunate. But yeah, guys, make sure to let us know down below what you think about our ladder predictions going into the year.